All right, so we're now going to look at the more practical side of the journaling process. Now, I've tried to kind of slimline this process as much as possible for you guys, combining both the qualitative and the quantitative side of your analysis, kind of into sort of a streamlined, one fit size all solution, if that is the correct phrase. I don't know. Anyway, on your dashboard, here's your trade journal, right? Now, before we dive into there, you will see this, and this is just an opportunity for, if you are someone who does use an Excel spreadsheet or maybe a Google Sheet, you can link your database into here and have that as a quick access if you want to. Otherwise, you can just delete this. But the bit that I'm going to bring you to is this trade journal section here. So in here, basically you'll see the pre-populated journal here for whatever year you're in. You can obviously just change the date. Now, whenever you want to create a new one, obviously just click into here and this will generate a new trade journal for you. Now, I'm going to show you what the journal looks like in a second. But if you want to, I'll show you. When I click into here, right, if you want to edit this and obviously mold this into your own and make any adjustments, don't make it to the one that I've already made for you. I'll show you why, because basically the one that you want to edit is the template within here, right? That's the one you want to change, because then when you go to click this every time, then you're going to have your saved changes in there. Whereas if you just change this one, it's only going to be, in here, right? So if you want to make changes, again, click in here, click the settings button, and then open this template. And that is where you can kind of customize your own one. And then in the future, whenever you click this button up here, that will generate a new trade journal for you. So going into the actual trade journal, we're going to look at the reviews in a second, but basically you have kind of two main options available to you. One is using sort of more of a spreadsheet approach, and one is using a calendar approach. So if we open up the spreadsheet, this is basically the exact same one from the backtesting and the case studies example. So you guys should know how to use this. So I won't talk you through this, other than obviously when you come down here, there's a slightly different template that you can use for here. Really the only difference compared to this template, compared to the one in your case studies and backtesting, is you have your psychology journal here. So in here, you can just keep a track of any psychological thoughts you had during a trade, right? Perhaps, you might have wanted to cancel an order, you might have wanted an exit early, whether you felt, FOMO going into the trade, anything like that. This is a key area to keep track of that with your trades. So that's kind of only the real key difference. I've tried not to kind of over customize the columns in the spreadsheet too much, because I really want you guys to take ownership of this and add in the relevant metrics that you want to track. But I'll kind of just leave this here as a decent starting point for you guys. So that's kind of if you want to use a spreadsheet or a table. Now, another way you can do it is essentially using a calendar view here, where you will add in trades each day as you take them, kind of as their own separate pages. And it's kind of a useful way to sort of visualize and organize your trade journal too. So the way the calendar works, it's pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory. Is let's say you can see the trades here, right? But let's say we want to add another trade that you took on the 7th, for example. You just click the trade template here, and it will populate it for you. Now, up the top, you can just use a format such as the pair that you traded and potentially the direction, something pretty simple like that. Then you've got the date. You can obviously add the time as well. I'm just doing this pretty quickly just for the sake of this video. And let's just say it was a 10-hour trade. Now, what you may want to populate in here is the sort of essentially your trade plan, right? Your checklist. You may have it separated into your minimum criteria. Right, so all of these, you'd obviously put it there, and you can tick these along as you're reviewing the trade to make sure that you, essentially have, it's a valid trade, right? You've ticked every bit of minimum criteria that you need for that to be a valid trade. Then you may have additional things in here, such as inducement or whatever for you is not minimum. Just realized I got a spelling mistake there. Doesn't have to be, a minimum criteria for the trade to be valid, but obviously it's nice to kind of have these technical confluences to improve or increase the probability of your trade, right? So you can add these in here. Now, obviously, if you tick all of your minimum criteria, then it's a valid trade, and you can click yes, otherwise, obviously, no. So yeah, make sure you just kind of copy and paste that in from your actual trade plan, or make a kind of shorter version of this here, simply for the purposes of this journaling. And then you've got your higher time frame, medium time frame, and lower time frame screenshots there that you can put in, and of course, any type up any sort of your text version of your notes as well. Writing up your full trade review here. Obviously your management, then your psychology journal, as we just spoke about, and then kind of your key lessons from that trade, right? What could you have done better? Did you make any mistakes? Potentially any observations that you're making on this trade that you might need to keep an eye out on if those things keep repeating, in terms of maybe you're cutting the trades too short. Maybe you need to change your management plan so you can kind of get more profit out of these positions, things like that, right? And that's pretty much it. And then obviously if it was a win, right, you can just be a little bit more extra if you want and put a nice little tick there, and then you can quickly see at a visual glance where your wins and your losses and your break evens are, or whatever. And that's kind of just a quick nice way to keep a track of your journal. And obviously as you get to the end of the week, then you can add your weekly review where you can just put your total weekly R, and then again you can just write in here your key lessons for the week, kind of just your how did the week go, whether you're making mistakes, any sort of just high level overview of things that you want to be keeping an eye out on going into the next month. Because then when you complete your month, so for instance, let's say we're in October now, you complete this for the whole of October, and then you have your 4 weekly reviews here. Then your next step at the end of the month is to go and do your monthly review, right? So you would go into your October review here. Now, before you go into there, what you would do is you would copy all of the key lessons from your weekly reviews, and you can essentially paste them into here. You might want to just chuck them down the bottom, and then you want to fill out these statistics. Okay, so your total wins, total losing trades, total break-even trades. Obviously, got your total trades there, your strike rate, your net P&L, and then potentially if you have your entries kind of. Again, I don't want to over customize this for you guys, but you might have it separated into different entry models on the lower time frames, or maybe you categorize your trades by kind of whether it's you're playing the 4-hour continuation or if you're playing a 4-hour pullback, right? I'm not going to try and kind of put words in your mouth here, because all of you are going to have slightly different trade plans, but this is kind of just to give you a rough example of if you do kind of categorize your trades into different categories, this is kind of an area in which you can do that, and you can record the actual performance for within each of those categories there, and then you can have a total R as well for potentially invalid trades you have taken that actually weren't not a part of your plan, and that way you can kind of see what your true strategy performance should be. You can kind of comparing that to your actual performance. And then it's just some very kind of simple questions here to answer. So actually this would be a good section where you can copy and paste those key lessons from your weekly review. You can chuck them all into here. Then you can look at, okay, what are the main barriers that have been holding you back that month, right? So you need to really be honest here, really take the time to kind of reflect on how the month has gone. What are the main barriers that are holding you back? And then most importantly, this is a step that a lot of people don't do, is they don't actually try and implement a practical plan for you to overcome those barriers, right? Just so people just keep going month in, month out. They know the problems that they have, but they don't actually do anything to change it. They're kind of just sitting there and hoping that their willpower will be strong enough, but that's not usually going to be the case. Okay, so we want to try and get practical here, try and think of some kind of innovative or creative ways in which you can overcome those barriers. Now, as always, if you need any help with this, if there's some barriers that you think are holding you back but you're not quite sure maybe what you could do, as always, please feel free to jump in the community. I can pretty much guarantee you someone else or many people would have gone through the same problems that you're having, and as always, reach out to me and I'll see if I can help you as well with any plans that we can implement to try and see if we can get you to go through those barriers and stop potentially forming any of those mistakes. And of course, also, what wins have you obtained this month? There will always be wins in there no matter what. Even if you think you've had the worst fucking month ever, I guarantee if you look hard enough, you would have grown, you would have got key lessons, right? Losses are lessons. There's always a lesson there if you looked hard enough. So make sure you celebrate that. Make sure you celebrate you've come through the month, right? You haven't blown an account. You still got your health, whatever. Put your wins in here and make sure you end that month on a high. So you bring in that momentum and that motivation into the following month. So then once you've done your monthly review, of course, repeat the same process, and then we have our quarterly reviews as well, okay? So exact same thing, you'd obviously put in your total statistics for that quarter, and there's a few more questions within here, right? Now, one thing I think is always important to do is to constantly remind yourself, your motivations and what is driving you to succeed as a trader. Just find that this kind of really helps to focus and sharpen the mind. Obviously, your motivations will slightly evolve and grow as you grow as a person, right? And as your life changes. But it's good to just reflect on this, for obvious reasons. Then obviously talk about here, what have you actually implemented this month to improve your performance? Okay, that will kind of be closely related to the things that you have implemented to help you overcome those barriers that you have identified were holding you back when you were doing your monthly reviews, right? So you can put those into here. Then what are the major trading lessons you have learned? So this is kind of where you want to, I guess, summarize the key lessons that you had from all of your weekly key lessons and all of your monthly key lessons, kind of try and bring out the main ones here. You'll often find that, from if you were to copy and paste all of your weekly and monthly lessons into here, it would be a hell of a long list, but you would see that it would be kind of probably 3 or 4 key categories that all of those lessons could be filtered into. So then you want to obviously just bring those 3 or 4 out here and just summarize it here. It's just a really good way to do that. And then obviously now looking back over the quarter, you can kind of, again, you're answering the same questions here, right, as you would be on your weekly and monthly reviews, but you're just having that even more bird's eye view, and you're seeing kind of what are those real, long-term things that are repeating here from a quarterly perspective that you need to try and overcome, okay? Now, I'm sure over the space of 3 months, especially if you're quite an active trader, there would have been some, low points during that time. Have a reflection on that, but more importantly, what are you going to do? What things can you put in place to try and prevent that from reoccurring? And then the flip side to that, what is the high point? Okay, there will always be a high point there. Even if you think you haven't, I guarantee there will be. There may be shit tons of them. Put them all here. This is your time to celebrate them. Celebrate the hard work you've been putting in. And then again, importantly, don't just hope, on faith. Get practical here. What are you going to do, right? Whether that's creating a certain environment or whatever, to ensure that those wins repeat again in the future. So this is why you need to spend the time really reflecting, what were those wins? Why did those wins happen? Was it because, everything was going great in terms of you were consistent with getting to bed early, you were consistent with eating healthy, you were consistent with working out, you weren't drinking or whatever, right? They're the things you need to think about and make sure that you're doing those again so you can repeat that performance in the market as best, as possible. And then what area of your trade plan have you not developed to its fullest potential, okay? You will always know at this point, especially after a quarter and 3 months worth of trading, you will have a very good idea of what bits of your trade plan you think you need to flesh out a bit more, or you don't have quite big enough confidence in, where you need to build some more rules, or you need to go and test, okay? And this will kind of feed into what is the one main area of your trading that you can focus on the next quarter that is going to bring the single biggest improvement to your results. Now, I often find you can have tons of key lessons and everything, and if you try and kind of correct all of them at once, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But actually, if you kind of just take that one big thing, the Pareto rule, the 80-20, what is that one 20% thing that is going to have the biggest impact on 80% of my results? And that can be your main big goal for that quarter, right? To try and nail and focus on, test, improve, refine, whatever. That is going to make sure your next quarter is going to be even better than the one you just had. Now, that doesn't always, like I said in the previous lesson, that doesn't always mean it's going to be reflected in your P&L, but you'll notice it, right? Whether you stop making those same mistakes or you feel more confident in your management or whatever, they're the types of qualitative things that you are going to be looking for. And of course, very similarly, that will all then feed into your annual review. I won't go through all of these questions, but it's very similar to your quarterly review, where you'll then be, read through all of your quarterly reviews again, and then you can answer these when you are, putting your feet up at the end of the year, and you're getting ready to smash the preceding year. So yeah, that kind of wraps it up in terms of, I think a pretty good process for trying to combine the more sort of quantitative and both the qualitative side all in one place kind of on Notion. So obviously it doesn't have quite the same capabilities as some automated software or Excel, for instance, in terms of recording quantitative data, but I think this is a pretty decent start, especially for the qualitative side of things. So yeah, take this away. Remember, again, I will repeat this. If you want to kind of change this and edit any of this, make sure you actually do that in here, the one that's in the where it will generate the new template for you. Okay. And yeah, if you do kind of come up with something a bit more interesting or a bit better, or your own creation, that's a bit more tailored towards your style of trading, please feel free to share that in the community, as I'm sure others will also benefit from that. Enjoy.